ESPN.com's Andrea Adelson with Armen and Levack on 104.5 The Team. She covers the college football scene. And Andrea, week 1 on September 7th, you were in Blacksburg when Ohio State defeated Virginia Tech. You saw Ohio State up close and in person. Is this team going to run the board, run the table, and win the national championship this year?
Yes, I think Ohio State will run the table and win the national championship this year. I just think that they are extremely difficult to defend on offense. I mean, you look at the addition of Braxton Miller now at receiver and all the different things that they can do with him. He brings an added dimension to this offense that simply did not exist a season ago. And when you look at two capable quarterbacks of running the offense, Ezekiel Elliott, a much stronger offensive line, I just think that this team has all the pieces in place and a schedule to go with it to be able to win again.
When you look at that talent, you got Cardell Jones, Zeke Elliott, Braxton Miller, just name a few. Which one of those three do you think will be the Heisman Trophy finalist from Ohio State? Because there's got to be one, right?
Oh, there's got to be one. It's so tough to tell at this point. I think that Cardell might be losing some votes only because he's splitting time with J.T. Barrett. And so if we're looking at the carries and the impact on the offense, to me right now anyway, I'm still probably going to go with Ezekiel Elliott because I think he's probably going to get the most touches in that group. But honestly, after week 1, I had Braxton Miller on my ballot because I thought the impact that he had in that game against Virginia Tech was a game changer. So, it's probably a little bit too early to tell right now. It depends on how Urban is going to use these guys in the offense. But, Ezekiel Elliott, Braxton Miller, Cardell Jones, J.T. Barrett, all of these guys are so impressive. You've got to think at least one of them is going to be there at the end.
When you look at their air quotes rival in Michigan, how long until Jim Harbaugh can turn that program around and make them that rival that they used to be?
Great question. My in-laws are from Ann Arbor, and they have been asking that very question because they're also excited about Jim Harbaugh and what he is bringing to Michigan. He is going to have to recruit on an entirely different level than what Michigan has recruited over the last couple of years because of the talent that Urban Meyer has already assembled at Ohio State. I mean, Michigan is lagging so far behind right now because Urban has got this head start on him with the guys that he's already got in place running his system. Michigan still has problems at quarterback until they get that issue resolved. It might be some time, but the fact that they do have a proven winning head coach there gives everybody the faith and the belief that Michigan will be competing sooner rather than later against Ohio State. I just don't think it's going to be this year.
ESPN's college football reporter Andrea Adelson with Armen and Levack on 104.5 The Team at Adelson ESPN on Twitter. And Andrea, you were there last weekend at the Florida game when Coach Jim McElwain went off on his running back, Kelvin Taylor. He has since apologized publicly. He called it embarrassing. In his first year as the Florida head coach, is this guy going to be able to make it long-term in Gainesville?
I had those exact same questions after the game, quite honestly, and I have the minority opinion on this, and I wrote about it this week, but all I thought after that game was, if this is how he acts after 2 games before SEC play has even begun, what is going to happen when the heart of the schedule is taking over his life? I mean, after this game against East Carolina, they have to play an improved Kentucky team. By the way, Florida hasn't lost to them since '86. They could lose to Kentucky. And then, of course, they've got this long winning streak against Tennessee. They have to play LSU. They have to play Georgia. Obviously, they've got Florida State at the end of the season. We're talking about Jim McElwain losing his mind after a win over East Carolina. Now, I understand he has a culture to change. I understand the penalties have been a major issue for this team. I understand Kelvin Taylor had no business doing a throat slash gesture. He should have been yelled at. But the way Jim McElwain did it, I thought, was completely over the top, unacceptable, and gave us a little window into his mindset now in the pressure cooker that is coaching at Florida. He's going to have to handle himself a lot better once SEC play begins because he cannot be a man who looks like he is not in control. And last week, he did not look in control.
ESPN.com's Andrea Adelson, college football writer. She is in Miami this weekend, Nebraska coming to town. Andrea, thanks for your time today and enjoy the game this weekend.
Thanks, guys. You too.
Andrea Adelson with Armen and Levack, ESPN college football writer, right here on your home for New York sports, previewing this weekend's games.
After week one, the SEC was 11-0. Then this past weekend, Arkansas loses to Toledo. Auburn needed overtime to take out Jacksonville State. Is the SEC still the dominant conference, or has everybody closed the gap on them?
Well, I don't think that we can say the SEC has been the dominant conference when they haven't won the last two national championships. I think that the gap is closing. Look at the bowl performance last year, and everybody wants to say, well, it's their strength of schedule in SEC play that's really killing the league. Well, I mean, not necessarily. Arkansas had no business losing to Toledo, and Tennessee should have beaten Oklahoma at home last week, and Auburn should have blown the doors out of Jacksonville State. So I don't know that this is an overwhelmingly dominant conference anymore. There are a lot of good teams across college football, but the storyline has been SEC, that it's kind of hard to rework the wiring in your mind to sit here and open up and say, well, there's other good teams, there's other good conferences out there. And instead of just automatically assuming the SEC is going to be great and better than everybody else year in and year out, let's see what all these other teams can do. And then at the end of the year, let's judge the conferences based on their results in the biggest games this season.
Well, you know my favorite joke is you can't spell second without SEC.
That's been the case the last 2 years.
I'm sure she's never heard that one. ESPN's Andrea Adelson. You can find her great work at ESPN.com with Armen and Levack on 104.5 The Team. This weekend, you're in Miami as the Nebraska Cornhuskers come to town. Miami's 2-0. How far are they away from being that nationally respected Miami football program again?
Boy, this is a question that gets asked every single year, and I don't think that this is the year. However, I will say this. If Al Golden is able to survive this season based on the schedule that he plays, this is not an easy game against Nebraska. They've got Florida State and Clemson on the schedule this year. They have to play at Cincinnati, and then, of course, the Coastal with Georgia Tech looming. If he survives, I think next year is a year that people should really start looking at Miami as having the potential finally to break out, be a favorite in the ACC in the Coastal Division, and maybe make some noise nationally. They still are not up to their full complement of scholarships. They're still struggling with that because of the NCAA sanctions that were handed down in the Nevin Shapiro situation. Their defensive line still not up to par what you expect out of what Miami teams should look like on the defensive line, but they have got all of the skill players on offense to be able to make some noise. And those skill players, when you look at a quarterback, Brad Kaya, Joe Yearby has been outstanding at running back with Duke Johnson gone. Receiver has been good. The offensive line a little shaky, but they do have some pieces in place to be able to get there eventually. I just don't think that it's going to be this year. And if they can get to 8 wins this year, I think that should be considered a good year for Miami.
Andrea, was the college football world shocked when Texas AD Steve Patterson was let go?
No, I don't think so. There's been rumblings about his mismanagement in that position now for months, and I just think that the time had come where Texas had enough, and they felt as if his demeanor and the background of business that he brought to that position just wasn't going to cut it at Texas, not at a school where the expectations are into the stratosphere and out into space. And he had rubbed way too many people the wrong way, most especially the boosters. And so I think they had to make a change, and it wasn't something that came out of left field simply because we started hearing rumblings about this and some of his management style making headlines. And I don't think that's anything that Texas ever wants.
ESPN college football reporter Andrea Adelson with Armen and Levack. Check out her work at ESPN.com, at @Adelson ESPN on Twitter. This weekend, she's at Miami. Nebraska's coming to town. Andrea, when you go on the road, what a sweet gig you have. Do you have any time at all to check out like the college stomping grounds, the cool place to go, have a drink or to go eat? Do you ever have time for that, or is it all work for you?
I would say it's 90% work. Yeah. It depends on when I get into town. I went to school at Florida, so whenever I go up to Gainesville, I just head straight up to the press box and then go home. Yeah. In Miami, I grew up down there, so I'm very familiar with the area. So again, it's a matter of just getting to the stadium, going to the press box. But when I was at Virginia Tech, I had a chance to walk around, look at the new indoor facility. I took part in the pregame show that they had on Sunday night at one of the places that is popular in Virginia Tech. So when it's a place that I don't go to very often, then yes, I do like to walk around, take a look at the campus, and ask people on Twitter, where should I be eating? What should I be looking at? Because I love getting a feel for all of these college towns and the atmospheres and the campuses. And so that's one of the best parts, honestly, is getting to go to a new place and experience new things and obviously get to be in an environment that is so much fun because that's what college football is all about.
Yeah, I would think so. That sounds pretty cool. Andrea Adelson of ESPN, ESPN.com. Andrea, thanks so much for your time today. Have a great weekend.
Thanks, guys. You too.